Hello. How you guys doing tonight? Welcome to Shadow at Night for Monday, November the 5th, 2024. On the show tonight, an excerpt of an interview I did this morning with mind control expert, propaganda expert, Jason Christoff. What a fascinating conversation he and I had for over 90 minutes. We talked this morning about, obviously, mind control, about propaganda, about how it's all around us all the time, why certain people were able to avoid it, why certain people weren't, how governments are involved, who's really running the show. There's so much there, and we wove it all together. So I've managed to take about a 20-minute excerpt from that interview to play for you guys on the show tonight. I have posted the entire 98, 99 minutes of the interview on shadowdavis.com, so you all Access members can go ahead and access that right now or whenever you want to at your earliest convenience. It's up there. It's on the website right now. If you want to become an all access member, that would be awesome. It really helps to support the show. Shadowdavis.com. Just like it's spelled beneath me there, Shadow Davis, all one word, and then .com, and you're in. And monthly, yearly, whatever, your support really helps this show to move forward and stay on the air first and foremost. So over the weekend, we had some Hindu versus Kalistanis action in Brampton, Ontario. We have some video for you to play of that. What else? Oh, yes. The Liberals announced an emissions cap today on oil and gas. The NDP doesn't think it goes far enough. The Conservatives think it's going to ruin, if it hasn't been already, it's going to completely and totally ruin the Canadian economy, which is kind of what we predicted they want to do a few years ago, right? If you're thinking about it from a globalist standpoint, if you want a one world government, you have to bring all democratic governments and countries to their knees financially, politically, and then make people beg for the solution. That's what we've been saying. So we're going to cover that in just a second. Got a whole bunch of other stuff on the U.S. election to cover for you guys as well. Let's say some hello. Susan. Hello, Susan, watching on X tonight from Arborg. Chuck is watching in Kamloops tonight. Hello, Chuck. Hello, Michael in Brampton. Oh, hey, Michael, did you catch the action that was going on at the temples in your town this past weekend? It was something else. A cop has been suspended. A Kalistani or a Hindu cop, I'm not sure which, was suspended from duty for taking part in these protests over the weekend. Carla's watching in Calgary. Hello, Janice. What did you say here? Ka. Or is that an emoji that doesn't read on my computer screen? Ellen is watching on Vancouver Island. Hello, Kathy in Bothwell, Ontario. Linda's watching in Saskatchewan. Mimi, hello. Lucette, Eddie, Aaron, Cheryl, Mireille, Barb, Lynn, Wade. Oh, by the way, also one more thing about the American election and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being appointed as the health czar down there if Trump wins. They're talking about removing should I even say this? All right. This might get me taken down on the major social medias. Removing all fluoride from American water. They're actually discussing that. So we're going to get to all of that a bit later on. Wade, Linda, Aaron, whatever platform you guys are watching on tonight, whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch. Yes, we do have 2 or 3 viewers on Twitch, X, Rumble, Telegram, or shadowdavis.com. Let's get this out there. Let's share as much as we can so we can get more eyes and ears on this story. On Rumble, Bailey, Notable, Patty, Dorsa, Lise, Vilma, who else? Wooden Boots is watching in LaSalle. Huber is watching tonight. All right, you guys, get this out there as well. You guys on Rumble, you're very important. We want to see this get out to as many people as we possibly can. Let's throw this story up on the screen here. A Canadian cop, this is from News 18, news18.com. A Canadian cop was suspended today after he was seen participating with the pro-Kalistani groups that launched an attack on Hindus at the Hindu Sabha temple in Brampton. The suspended cop, identified as Harinder Sohi, was caught on camera holding a Khalistan flag as others in the protest chanted anti-India slogans. He served as a sergeant of the Peel Regional Police. And we have some video from that activity.
He is the one. 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 Sir, take him out. Take him out. He is the one. He is the one. He is the one. Man, what are you doing? Please ask them to go, please. And he's hitting with the stick. He's hitting with the stick. He's hitting with the stick. Us. They are here. In us. They are hitting with the stick. Leave it, sir. This is our protest. Leave it. Leave it. Hey. Leave it. Hey. Please. Move. He's hitting with the stick. This guy hitting with the stick. He's hitting us with the stick. This guy hitting with the stick.
Is she pointing at the cop? Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know the first thing about Indian politics, the first thing about Hindus versus Sikhs versus Kalistanis, because I don't know. And you want to know what else? I don't care. You come to Canada, you want to live in Canada, you want to get away from whatever it is that you didn't like about your home country, and so you move somewhere else where you think your life is going to improve. And you bring it with you. And then when somebody says something about it, they're labeled as bigots, racists. This is the oath of citizenship that you take when you become a Canadian citizen. Have you guys looked at this at all? I'm going to sit here and say to you, I admit that I hadn't looked at this probably since I was a kid in school. And I was shocked to see how flimsy it is. This is the oath. This comes right from the government website, canada.ca, the oath of citizenship. I swear or affirm, because you can affirm these days. You don't have to swear to God. You can just affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada, including the Constitution, which recognizes and affirms the Aboriginal and treaty rights of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen, whatever that means. Whatever that means. It was about 6 years ago that Don Cherry was unceremoniously fired from his job as a hockey analyst with Sportsnet and before that CBC because of these comments.
Veteran, I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto, nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to, he says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now you go to the small cities, and those the rows on rows. You people love they come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
Now, that wasn't specifically about immigration. That was about people not wearing a poppy because they don't know that they're supposed to. They don't know what it means because they're brand new in this country. But that oath of citizenship tells them nothing. Nothing. What do you have to do to become a citizen here in Canada? Take that stupid oath? Means absolutely zero. Now, Don Cherry was talking about the disrespect that newcomers to our country show, or the lack of respect they show. And he said, you people. And by you people, I suppose he was talking to these people that were rioting and attacking each other over Indian politics, pretty much, or religious issues, or whatever they are, that have somehow spilled into our country. And thanks to Justin Trudeau, they have gone completely and totally out of control. Don Cherry was let go from Sportsnet because he refused to go on the air the following weekend and apologize. He could have gone back. All he had to do was say, I'm sorry for those comments that I made. Now, he was wrong in that he's blaming the immigrants. You don't blame the immigrants if they're legal. They're here legally. You can't blame them because they're just following the system. What you do is you blame the people in charge of the system. So that was the one small mistake that Don made. And this was the reaction from this TV show on CTV that's called The Social. I'm not sure if it's on the air still, but listen to this woke diatribe. This is what, 2018? I think 2017 even. Watch this.
To begin with this, Don Cherry is not backing down from the words that got him fired from Sportsnet yesterday. So in an interview with Toronto radio station News Talk 1010, Cherry said he could have stayed on, but he won't take back his comments about new Canadians or you people not wearing poppies. And so we're going to dive into the question why this has caused a firestorm across the country. This has hit a nerve either on one side or on the other. Why do we think this is?
I think it struck a nerve because I'm told he's a Canadian icon and he's a symbol of the great sport of hockey, which is the sport that unites us across this country.
All right, how clueless do you have to be told that Don Cherry, at this stage of the game, just 5-6 years ago, that he's a Canadian icon? Already you know this person with the mouth wide open here on the screen is a moron.
And that narrative is the one that strikes a nerve with me because I don't worship at the altar of hockey. I never have. And maybe it's because of where I grew up, but and going to a couple different universities, there's a certain type of person in my mind,
Oh, by the way, just so you guys are fully aware, this is Marcy Ian on the far left here. Used to be on this show. Now I believe she is the Minister of Wokeness in Canada. Marcy Ian right there on the far left. Huh. Qualified to be a minister in our government.
Who does. And they all tended to be white boys who weren't, let's say, very nice. They were not generally thoughtful. They were often bullies. Their parents were able to afford to put them, spend $5,000 a year on minor hockey instead of $5,000 is a lot of money. You could do other things besides spending your time in an arena. You can go on a trip and learn about the world, see other things, eh? The world is a big place. Maybe get outside out of that bubble. And for me, Don Cherry is the walking and talking representative of that type. Mm-hmm. And he's a type of person that now people want to like, and I know he's done some good things, but at the same time, when someone good is also able to make fun of people who believe in climate science, who's also able to be like...
6 years ago, people who believe in climate science? Like it's proven? Like it is absolutely fact the world is burning. The way she said that is galling.
Whether he's charming or not, but he's still a bigot and a misogynist. When you're, you know, to have those two things, like, I dismiss those people. And I find it embarrassing. I find it embarrassing that there's a big chunk of the country that is so upset about this. Hockey doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry. It's not.
And you're
part
still
of
a
my
great
Canada.
Canadian.
And I'm still
also a great Canadian.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a slippery slope right down the hill ever since then, my friends. Don Cherry, to me, represents the fiber, the backbone of what this country is, or at least used to be. And those people that she is talking about, those people are us. Those people are everyday Canadians. And not everybody can just afford to throw $5,000 down on their kids' hockey equipment. Some people scrimp and save for that to make their kids happy, to get their kids involved in a team sport that's going to build their character for the rest of their lives, or let them go out and have fun. And there she is judging these guys, these white boys who play hockey, based upon the fact they're hockey players and they're white. Could that have been the beginnings of wokeness in Canada? I think probably, aside from Trudeau becoming the prime minister in 2015. Things started to shift just a year, maybe less, after that happened. And then these kinds of shows started coming out. And Don Cherry got fired, or was given an ultimatum. He chose to stay off because he wasn't going to apologize for his words. And you want to know what, Mr. Cherry? I absolutely, fully respect you 100%. And as for your ex-partner there, spine made of freshly boiled pasta. What a weak, weak man Ron MacLean showed himself to be. Sad situation, but we lost Don Cherry, and look what happened to masculinity across this country. Look at it now. When you see young kids, like I'm out all the time, right? I'm just doing things all the time. You see the young kids, 14, 15-year-old boys, most of them are flabby, feminine. These are the ones I see. Now, I might be completely wrong, but I'm noticing that a lot more. Are you? Or am I crazy? Never used to be like that. But also remember, they've removed bullying from schools these days as well. And I'm not going to sit here and advocate for bullying, but I will say that, hey, I got bullied in school and I smartened the hell up because I just didn't want to be made fun of anymore. So maybe, just maybe, bullying was an acid test for us as kids, as long as it didn't go too far. Incredible. All right, next story. Canada proposes sharp cut in oil and gas sector emissions by 2030. This is a story from Reuters, as you can see. This came out today. The Liberals are trying to actually remove oil and gas from Canada's economy. The Canadian government released draft regulations today that would cap emissions of greenhouse gases from the oil and gas sector at 35% below 2019 levels by 2030. What a shocker. Drawing condemnation from the industry that said it will force a production cut. Oil and gas is Canada's highest polluting industry, Reuters says, and its emissions continue to rise, undercutting progress in many other parts of the economy. This is obviously a statement from the Liberal government that Reuters didn't bother looking into. Ottawa will likely fall short of its commitment to reduce emissions by 40 to 50% from 2005 levels by 2030, unless the oil and gas sector intensifies efforts to decarbonize. And so there was debate in the House of Commons today.
Production cap will do is make other countries richer while making Canadians poorer. Exactly. But that's something this Prime Minister is so good at. Consider this, GDP per capita in Canada, down. In the US, it's up. 9 years ago, average wages in the US and Canada were almost identical. Now, an American worker brings home $22,000 more than their Canadian counterpart. And $500 billion in investments has fled Canada to the United States, creating bigger paychecks for American workers, all because of this Prime Minister's high taxes and massive deficits. The Prime Minister is the #1 job creator in the United States.
Yes.
So instead of helping the Canadian economy, why not fight for Canada for once?
Mr. Speaker, maybe the member opposite should take the time to actually read the information about the pollution cap. Production is forecast to increase 16% by 2030, Mr. Speaker. So this idea that we're somehow cutting production is simply not true.
Wait a minute. You want to cap emissions to 35% below 2019 levels by 2030, but you're somehow increasing them? This guy's no good at math. I mean, he's shown that over and over again through this whole carbon tax fiasco. There was committee meetings over this as well. Let's watch.
Minister Flynn, how many jobs, Canadian jobs, will be lost with your job-killing oil and gas cap?
I was under the clearly mistaken impression that we were here to talk about the TMX pipeline, a pipeline which we got built and the Conservative government didn't.
It's very fair that a minister comes to committee.
And since we're talking about jobs, I'm glad to point out 35,000 jobs were created during the building.
You know, it's interesting that Chrystia Freeland
I was under the clearly mistaken impression that we
always tries to hijack the content of these committee meetings, even though she's the one being questioned. She's the witness. She's supposed to answer the questions from committee.
I was clearly under the impression we would be talking about the TSX pipeline.
Yeah, we might. But for now, I'm asking you how many jobs will be lost because of these ridiculous emission caps that you plan to put on Canadians.
We're here to talk about the TMX pipeline, a pipeline which we got built and the Conservative government didn't.
It's very fair that a minister comes to committee.
And since we're talking about jobs, I'm glad to point out 35,000 jobs were created during the building of the pipeline.
Okay,
and
well,
that's great.
how many jobs will be lost with the emissions cap? I just need the number, Minister.
There will be tens of thousands of jobs created as a result of the emissions cap. If you just look at
need a number.
the Shell Polaris project, the Strathcona project, the Pathways project that we all hope will move ahead, all the jobs that were created through the implementation.
So they're talking about this new green economy and these new jobs they're creating through wind power and solar power. And that's never going to last. It's not sustainable, even though it's classified as sustainable, which is outrageous. But let's continue.
Reduction technologies.
What's the number?
This is an enormous opportunity that will create tens of thousands of jobs in Alberta. You see it with Linde, you see it with their products, you see it with Dow and its first net zero petrochemical facility. You see it with the Imperial biofuel facility. My goodness, I mean, go and have a look at what's happening on the ground.
I just need a number. If you don't have the number, just say so.
Tens of thousands.
Okay, so you're saying tens of thousands of jobs will be created. Deloitte has estimated that 110,000 jobs will be lost in Canada due to your job-killing oil and gas cap. Are you confirming today that tens of thousands of jobs will be more than 110,000 jobs that you're going to drive away from Canada? Yes or no? I just need a yes or no.
Look, the oil and gas cap is intended to incent economic activity and the long-term competitiveness of the oil and gas sector while doing what we need to do to address the climate issue.
All right. So do you notice a certain smugness, glibness from these Liberal MPs and cabinet ministers? They seem to be becoming more arrogant as they fall further down in the polling. It's remarkable to me. But then again, a party, a business, whatever it is, a team will always take on the personality eventually of their leader. Won't they? And so these Liberals are learning by example from Justin Trudeau. It's absolutely astounding to me. So let's throw this up on the screen. I was thinking, Jagmeet saying he's a sellout. He's never, ever going to not support the Liberals. So doesn't matter how much ranting and raving and saber rattling the Bloc and the Conservatives do about bringing down this minority Liberal NDP government. The bottom line is they don't have the numbers to do it. But the NDP released this statement today regarding this oil and gas cap, this emissions cap by 2030, 2035. And they say they're not happy, but they're not happy because the Liberals sold out. They say the Liberals have left their watered-down emissions cap to the 11th hour, all to cave to rich CEOs. Laurel Collins is the NDP environment and climate change critic, and she made the following statement in reaction to the Liberals' watered-down emission cap plan. Canadians are living with the consequences of the climate crisis. It was raining today in Manitoba, by the way, chilly, typical November weather. They want to see the government taking real action, but for close to a decade, the Liberals have caved to rich oil and gas CEOs on climate measures, and this emissions cap is no different. The Liberals have delayed this cap until the 11th hour and are giving Canada's biggest polluters room to keep polluting with no limits. The timing and the math don't make sense. So maybe, just maybe, the Liberals will vote to bring the government down for exactly the opposite reason that the Conservatives wanted. Well, the exact opposite of one of the many reasons that the Conservatives want to see the Liberals go down. Maybe Jagmeet Singh is looking for an excuse to get off this political hook that he himself has put himself and his party on. If you look at the latest polls, they show that the Conservatives are well in front, 42, 43%, as compared to the Liberals hovering around 23 or 24%, and the NDP somewhere at 18 or 19%. Now, let's have a look at that. You would think with the weakness of the Liberal Party, I mean, they are weak. They are flagging. Still, 23 or 24% of Canadians would vote for them. Don't you think that the NDP, this is a golden opportunity for that party, that left-wing Marxist party, to maybe make some hay at the Liberals' expense? But they can't because they have a moron as their leader. It's remarkable. And if you combine their totals together, what you come up with is about 41 or 42%, which is still behind the Conservatives. Now, if you put the Liberals and the NDP together on the ticket, if that party decides or those parties decide they want to merge into one party, then you can take away 10% of their vote. The last poll I saw was from NDP and Liberal voters. If those two parties decided to merge, they wouldn't vote for it because it would somehow betray their allegiances. So you take away 10%, maybe more, and now you're talking about 30% of people voting Marxist in this country. And maybe another 5% voting conservative. So now you're talking about 46, 47% voting for Poilievre. That would be a clear-cut majority across the board. I am not saying that there is a political solution to this mess, but the situation there would be a lot better than it currently is, as these people have us heading at breakneck speed to globalist land. Let's throw this up on the screen here. Human trafficking. I'm not sure if you guys realize that it is a problem here in Canada. This comes right from the government website, 150statscan.gc.ca. In 2023, 570 human trafficking incidents were reported to police. That's only the ones reported to police, which was a slight decrease from the 597 reported in 2022. There was also a decrease in the rate of human trafficking, 1.4, excuse me, 1.4 incidents per 100,000 population in 2023 compared with 1.5 in 2022. So most of the human trafficking in Canada happens in these 5 metro areas. Can you name them? Can you name? I'm going to throw this up into the comments. I want to see what you guys have to say. By the way, I've got a 20-minute excerpt of the interview that I did with Jason Christoff to play for you guys before the end of the show tonight. The entire thing is available for all access members at shadowdavis.com. Don't forget to get this out there, like, share, get it out to as many people as you possibly can. The show is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com. Toronto is number 1, Ellen says. Anybody else got any thoughts on this? Or is Ellen the only one? Vancouver, Lucette says. Kurt says Saskatoon, Toronto. Anybody else? Winnipeg, Karen says. No. You're going to be surprised. Windsor, Vancouver, Grand Prairie, Calgary. You got to think about border cities and you've got to think about coastal cities. All right, let's get back to this here. What are the big 5? These 5 cities are responsible for nearly half of all the human trafficking in Canada. And so here they are from 2013 to 2023, 5 CMAs, Census Metropolitan Areas, accounted for almost half of police reported incidents, and they are Toronto leading. Ottawa is next, which surprises me. Halifax, Montreal, and London, Ontario. It's important to note that police reported data do not capture victim mobility. That is, victims may have been trafficked from one area to another. In addition, the data could reflect police practices and resources aimed at better identifying human trafficking incidents, which can vary from one jurisdiction to another. It's a shame that this is going on, but with the open borders policy that Justin Trudeau has, it's not surprising. Another piece here from a government website, this one from the CRTC. Share your thoughts on a temporary fund to support local news production by commercial radio stations. So they want to know if we think a temporary fund to be administered by the Canadian Association of Broadcasters that would support local news production by commercial radio stations outside of Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Ottawa. This consultation comes after the decision on base contributions issued June 4th of this year and the recognition of the immediate need for funding to help provide timely relief to commercial radio stations. Share your thoughts on the CAB's plan to administer the fund. My goodness. They want to give even more of our money to commercial radio stations. Radio stations, by the way, that all told you what you need to do a few years ago if you want to remain a part of Canadian society. All of these radio stations are complicit. And now they want to pay them with our money because they can't make any money on their own. They can't go. Their salespeople cannot go into the streets, into the businesses of the city they're in and say, hey, you want to advertise on my radio station? Good value for the money. They'll get laughed right out of the room. Laughed right out of the room. And that goes for all of the national and regional news networks as well. CTV, Global, CBC especially, even Rogers City News. They're all jokes. They're all fake news. We know it. And look at this. Look at this headline here from CTV News in Calgary. Over the weekend, they say thousands attend rally at City Hall opposing the United Conservative Party's trans rights policies. Oh, and by the way, Danielle Smith got 91.5% of the vote at the UCP get-together this past weekend. They're going to keep her as leader. There's no question there. Thousands attend rally at City Hall opposing UCP's trans right policies. So I've been to a lot of these rallies before, over the past few years, but, the rallies I went to were all about human rights and our charter rights, pretty much. And I can't say that we got thousands every single time, but I know what 3,000 looks like. I know what 4,000, 5,000 looks like. I know what it looked like when the convoy rolled through Winnipeg. Thousands and thousands of people out there in the minus 35. Seriously, it was that cold when they came rolling through, and there were thousands of us there to greet them. Now, CTV provides us this one picture, and does that look like thousands to you? Now, it's not a tiny crowd, but it certainly doesn't look like thousands to me. Maybe a couple hundred. I don't know, but they don't give us any angles. But they say an expected crowd of 2,000 people showed up at City Hall supporting the rights of trans people in the province, blah, 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 blah. So they tell us 2,000 people estimated. But during the Freedom Convoy rallies all across the country as they were rolling, they would come out, these local news organizations, and there were thousands of people out there, and they would say dozens of people, and they would set up their shot so they would take the crowd out of it, and they would show you instead a desolate snowbank in the background. They are dishonest. They continue to be dishonest, even though they get called out on it time and time and time again. They are shameless. They have no souls. They are not to be trusted. If you have cable, cancel it. There is no reason for you to watch any of this nonsense ever again, period. Period. It's just a mind control device. The interview, or at least the interview snippet with Jason Christoff, is coming up in just a second. Our friend Kellyanne Annette Puri with D-Trans Alliance of Canada went to this rally in Alberta this past weekend. She says, I was at the AB legislature today, which is again this past weekend, Saturday, and had the unique opportunity to turn around and introduce myself to Janice Irwin. Now, Janice is the whatever, man, woman, NDP MLA. I think she's based in Edmonton. Kelly says, I openly acknowledge to Janice that D-Trans Alliance Canada is a small grassroots organization without government funding, employees, or a physical office location. She goes on to say, when I asked Janice what Janice would do to amplify the voices of Albertan detransitioners as they are the marginalized of the marginalized, Janice turned and walked away. What a shocker. Hey, this is something that John Rustad, the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of BC, posted on X just about 3 hours ago. Interesting. Elections BC has revealed that a ballot box containing 861 votes went entirely uncounted, along with 14 unreported votes in Surrey Guildford, which is a crucial riding narrowly won by the NDP. He goes on to say, well, I am not disputing the final outcome pending remaining judicial recounts. Why should he even have to say that? Because he knows the left-wing corporate media are going to attack him. He's a conspiracy theorist. It's clear that mistakes like these severely undermine public trust in our electoral process. This is an unprecedented failure by the very institution responsible for ensuring the fairness and accuracy of our elections. At a time when confidence in election integrity is more fragile than ever before, British Columbians deserve assurance that every vote counts and that these errors are corrected. This is why I'm calling for an independent review to ensure these types of mistakes never happen again. Democracy is too sacred to allow trust to erode to the lows that we see today. And he's got a point. Oh, you know what? I should have thrown this up before that story. I'm sorry, because it would have made a great connection with the transing thing. But you know that boxer at the Olympics, that male boxer who won the female boxing gold medal, Imane Khelif? Well, it turns out, Algerian boxer, Imane Khelif has XY chromosomes and testicles. French Algerian medical report admits. I don't know if this is a shocking development or a new development. I think we all knew this back then. And really, all you have to do is look. Anyway, they say this shocking new development has emerged in the case of Algerian boxer Imane Khelif after a French journalist reportedly gained access to a damning medical report. Remember, this report was sealed up during the Olympics, revealing Khelif has testicles. You know, I can't even believe I have to sit here and tell you guys about this. I can't believe it. Like, who would have thought that we would ever come to this level of total ridiculousness? The news comes months after Khelif sees the gold medal, blah, blah, blah. This report was drafted in June of 2023 via a collaboration between the Kremlin Bicêtre Hospital in Paris and the Mohammed Lamine Degabhine Hospital in Algiers, Algeria. Drafted by expert endocrinologists Soumeya Fadala and Jacques Young, the report reveals that Khelif is impacted by a 5-alpha reductase deficiency, a disorder of sexual development that's only found in biological males. The genetic abnormality influences the normal development of a child's sexual organs. At birth, male babies impacted by 5-alpha are often incorrectly assigned female due to the presence of deformed genitalia that sometimes takes on the appearance of a blind vaginal pouch. So look, I don't want to sit here and go blaming Imane Khelif for thinking that she was a girl because that's what her parents did to her or him. Whatever. Really, his personal life is none of our concern. It's when he gets into the boxing ring and starts fighting women that he's clearly stronger and faster than, that it becomes a problem. It's really incredible. And the level of denial about this and obfuscation when this was all going on was mind-blowing to me. It's embarrassing, really. Completely and totally embarrassing. Next story. Watch Attorney Michael Connett depose the experts on the safety of fluoride in drinking water after new data shows links to lower IQ in kids. Whoa.
Moving through, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and into the 80s, the standards around fluoride, you were able to depose one of the experts, one of the specialists at the NSF, the National Sanitation Foundation. And just to give people, like a fly on the wall view of what you were looking at and how you were speaking to these people in court, we have a video of this, and we're talking about the safety standards of fluoride. Let's take a look.
So I'm moving now to topic 7 of the deposition notice, which reads, what NSF has done, if anything, to determine the potential for fluoridation chemicals to cause neurotoxic effects. So let me ask you, has NSF taken any steps to determine the potential for fluoridation chemicals to cause neurotoxic effects?
No.
Does NSF have any position on whether fluoridation chemicals can cause neurotoxic effects?
Since we have not conducted our own risk assessment on the fluoridation chemicals, we do not have a position on whether they are able to cause neurotoxic effects.
Okay. Has NSF taken any steps to determine the upper tolerable daily dose of fluoride that will not cause neurotoxic effects in humans?
We have not.
Does the NSF have a position on what the upper tolerable daily dose of fluoride that will not cause neurotoxic effects is?
Since we have not conducted risk assessments on any of the fluoridation chemicals, we do not have a position on a daily dose that would be appropriate to prevent or to reduce the risk for neurotoxic effects from fluoride exposure.
Now, she was from the NSF, and that's kind of like a company it's a company, it's something outside of the government. This is something that regulates these chemicals in things like water. So did you find that astonishing when she answered like that?
Well, I didn't find it astonishing. It's what I expected, but it was good to have it confirmed. The NSF is a private organization that certifies the chemicals that are added to drinking water. EPA delegated that authority to them in the 1980s. But I asked those same questions to the EPA, to the CDC, and to the FDA, as well as to the 3 major companies in this country that sell fluoridation chemicals to water municipalities for fluoridation. I asked all of them, can you point me to any study that shows that adding fluoridation chemicals to drinking water is safe for the brain? Okay, just one. I wasn't asking for hundreds. I was just asking for one. And every one of those organizations came back and said, we are not aware of any safety data on that point. And to put that in perspective, in local debates on fluoridation, the proponents of this practice will often say, there's thousands of studies, thousands of studies that show that the fluoridation is safe, right? And here I had the opportunity, under penalty of perjury, to ask these organizations, I'm not asking you for thousands of studies. Can you point me to one study on this particular issue of the effects on the brain, neurological effects? Can you point me to any study that shows that water fluoridation is safe? And every single one of those organizations came back and said, no.
Wow, this reminds me, for our audience, they'll probably remember this. Can you show me a vax versus unvax study of chronic illness in children? The robust data, they really can't produce those. Let's talk about the EPA, because you sat down with Dr. Joyce Donohue. You didn't sit down with her, you deposed her. And you were kind of asking the same questions about these safety standards. Surely the EPA, a top scientist at the EPA, would have some answer for you if a private company didn't. Here's what she had to say.
You would agree that this study right here adds further reason why we need to do a reassessment of the fluoride safety standards in the United States.
I think it's a reason for doing not just the United States. I think it's a reason for doing an update to the fluoride assessment.
Everywhere.
Well, for anybody who's interested in fluoride and the need for regulation of fluoride exposure.
Right. And anyone interested in making sure that fluoride is safe for consumption.
That people are not overexposed. Yes.
Right. Okay.
So obviously this is a problem now where you're picking up rocks and you're saying, well, does someone have an answer for me here? Because I'm really concerned. We have a lot of data showing this is hurting children, it's lowering their IQ, but no one seems to give me have a standard anywhere I can find.
Right. And so what I did there with Dr. Donahue is I showed her some of the new studies on IQ, some of the birth cohort studies, high quality studies funded by the NIH, which have found that prenatal fluoride exposure is significantly correlated with reductions in IQ. I showed her those studies and she agreed that they're high quality studies and that they warrant a reassessment of all of the safety standards that we now have for fluoride. So, the court took note of that testimony and found it significant.
Yeah. Correlation does not equal causation, they say. I personally think that is a cop-out. Oh, and by the way, the Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com. This toothpaste here, no fluoride. Comes in bubbleberry, spearmint, cinnamon, naturally whitening, helps keep your teeth clean with triple action nano silverceuticals made from only the highest quality ingredients. This unique toothpaste is kid safe, uses powerful natural ingredients. Triple action nano silver helps clean your teeth, promotes healthy teeth and gums, then above ground. Mind coral calcium helps to scrub and remineralize your teeth. Again, it comes in bubbleberry. It's really good. Spearmint and cinnamon, and it's available at CanadaNanoSilver.com. CanadaNanoSilver.com. If you're looking for a retail location, there's over 30 all across the country to choose from. Just hit the retail locations tab on the website. If you would like to become a retailer of these awesome products yourself, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.com. So some are suggesting that tomorrow is the big election, right? I'm sure you know about that. Big presidential, big senatorial, House of Representatives, governorships on the line. Big, huge election down there. So people want to know, well, the last election, we didn't get the results like overnight and then next day, and then there was controversy and dispute and the big problem at January 6th. People want to know when the 2024 presidential election results will be announced. And so I went looking and I found something here on U.S. News, and they say, the election comes down to a handful of swing states, as we know. I think they're Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. Those are the big seven. So what are they saying? It depends. It depends on how close these races are. If the election turns out to be as close as the polls make it out to be, I don't think it is. Don't expect a quick call. Two swing states in particular, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, don't allow mail-in ballot processing to start until Election Day. If it's very close, then you need to make sure it goes down to the end. Maybe there's a recount, all of that mechanical stuff that takes time. You can bet that these voting machines will have breakdowns along the way. They always do. So it could take days, even longer, says Hans Noel, a political science professor at Georgetown University. An estimated 75 million voters cast their ballots early. States have different rules for counting mail-in ballots and absentee ballots. For example, mail-ins in Nevada must be postmarked, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is, it may not be called tomorrow night unless it is a landslide, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a landslide or not. Some are saying it's going to be a Trump whitewash. Other people are saying it's going to be close. There's a pollster who called Iowa for Kamala Harris yesterday. That's the first poll in the last year that shows Iowa going blue, which is crazy. It's crazy. This is coming up in the extension tonight. This video here. Did Operation Warp Speed stop the FEMA camps? So for you all access viewers, you're going to see that in just a few minutes on shadowdavis.com. As promised, here is the clip from the Jason Christoff mind control expert interview from earlier today.
All this is programmed into people using standard mind control tactics, because if they poisoned you, it's the same thing as the invisible enemy versus the real enemy. If they showed up with thugs on your lawn on a Friday night, held you down, and force-fed you Harveys and beer, you'd be like, hey, whoa. What are you guys doing here? There's something nefarious going on here. But if I can trick you through standard mind control operations, just like the way those people stole cars when they watched Gone in 60 Seconds, I can mind control you to poison yourself. How confusing is it then that you can't stop? And then I get my way anyway because you're weak. And then I'm going to fabricate the next fake crisis. And I'm going to control all the content of your movies and TV shows and government announcements. And because of you and your weakened state, because you're poisoning yourself by your own hand, you're more compliant. So I'm going to get my way with you all the time. So what we call self-sabotage is simply an extension of these mind control modalities. I'm going to tell you how powerful mind control can be. If someone doesn't think that they can be tricked to become an alcoholic, let me tell you something. There's a made-for-Netflix special called The Push, and I will send it to you, Shadow, after we're done today. It's a 1-hour presentation. Netflix hired one of the best mind control experts in the world, but he uses it for entertainment. He knows how to make his money. His name is Darren Brown, and he is out of the UK. So he and this isn't his first special. This is just, I don't know, he's done so many. This one people really need to watch. So he fabricates a scenario, all scripts it out months in advance. There's 70 actors and there's one mind control victim. The mind control victim has no idea what's going on. And although this special is 1 hour long and they clip it all together, sort of the mind control operation was about two hours long. And during this 2 hour Netflix, the filming, this mind control victim and these 70 actors pushed all the mind control modalities that I've been talking about so far, one on top of the other of this mind control victim. Fear, repetitive content, poisoning, group pressure, social pressure, and it mounts and it mounts and it mounts. And regardless of how this happens, the end scene is on the top of a 10-story building. And you'll have to watch how it got there. And there's an old man on top of the 10-story building. He's on the side of the wall, the precipice. He's got his feet dangling over. And the group is these actors are really working the mind control modalities on this poor mind control victim. And for the mind control victim to make sure to remove his group pressure, all he has to do is go push that old man off the side of the building. Now, don't worry. They're all actors, including the old man. It's not an old man. It's a stunt man. And he's in Hollywood makeup. And he's young. And he's harnessed, but you can't see the harnesses. This example was run 4 times. 3 out of the 4 people murdered the man live on video. That's with 2 hours of mind control impregnation. Whoever's listening to this, you've been under similar mind control operations since the day you flew out of the womb. So if they can make someone kill another human being in only 2 hours, and again, the guy was harnessed, and when the the mind control victim pushed the guy off the side of the building, killing them, a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists came out and said, hey, you know what? This is Darren Brown. You're on a show. You didn't really kill the guy. Very unethical. But it can show the power of what these modalities are capable of. So don't ever be surprised that they got 3 billion people to line up and participate in what they participated in. Because it's child's play if you know the way the group pressure works. The only reason the 3 out of the 4 people in the push murdered the old man live on TV was because of group pressure. That was it. Because we want to be accepted by the group. And if the pressure's high enough and the fear is high enough, we will always comply. And this is the same techniques that was used in the push were used against the public and weaponized against the public from 2020 till now. And before 2020 as well, the same tactics have always been used.
Sounds like the Ingram experiments from the early 1960s. I think I've got that one right, where they had a bunch of people in a room and they were to push a button or turn a dial in terms of torturing a subject they couldn't see, but they could hear. And something like 90% of these people, maybe a bit lower, pushed the button to the point where the person on the other side of the room they were torturing just died. And the only reason... go ahead.
What was the Milgram experiment?
Milgram, right. Yes, Milgram. Yeah. And the only reason they actually did it was because they were dealing with a person in authority, I believe. Wasn't that the conclusion that came out of this?
Well, basically, yeah, it was the Milgram experiment, and there was electric shocks to be given to a participant that was behind the wall. Again, the person behind the wall were supposed to scream and react like the shocks were real. They were all actors, including the doctor that would say, please continue. If the person loses consciousness, it counts as a non-answer, and you will shock him again, and we will turn up the voltage again. Anything over 100 on the voltage meter was considered dangerous. 100% of people went to 100. And there was a level on the, it was a fabricated voltage meter, but there was a level of shock that was considered fatal. And about 65% went to the fatal shock level simply because a person in authority told them to. Now, more importantly, it was a person in a white lab coat. This psychological experiment was not lost in the COVID operation, as early in the COVID PSYOP, Dr. Anthony Fauci was paraded out. They went to the NIH where he worked, and he was wearing a white lab coat as Trump basically toured. Trump was in power at that time. He was the president early in the COVID PSYOP, and Dr. Fauci was displayed exactly for this reason, because it's been shown that if a man in a white lab coat, which is the same coat that a butcher wears, this is the average person fails to understand that the butcher that slaughters animals at your market is wears the same clothing as your medical doctor for various ancient reasons, that if a medical doctor in white lab coat tells you, the high priest tells you what to do, you are hardwired neurologically to comply, because authority is what will lead you to safety in the nervous system if you're afraid. And all this, plus thousands of more little cues, little nuances, fine nuances, were weaponized against the public during the COVID operation.
What made people go further? And I'm not talking about taking the vaccine or adhering to the regulations and the restrictions and whatnot. You had people like Gene Simmons, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jimmy Kimmel, all of these big name Hollywood stars or music stars come out and say, if you are walking amongst us unvaccinated, you are the enemy, and so on. And I believe Jimmy Kimmel's big thing was, if I've got a hospital bed for a guy who's been vaccinated, versus a guy who's been unvaccinated, well, then it's good night wheezy. I mean, these people actually said some very horrible things publicly in front of millions of people. Do you think they understand now what they did, or did they understand then even? Or were they just going with the crowd?
I'll address it in two stages. Kimmel, Stern, who else did you mention there? Gene Simmons. These sort of people have membership in the group that I'm talking about. In the group, when the phone rings, they are not allowed to deny the order. So in certain secret societies, if a higher ranking member tells you to do something, you are not allowed to deny them that request. There are other people that do not sit at the table and take these orders, but they still did what you said. This again has to do with internal weakness. So the subconscious counts repetitive content, and it would have counted who's getting rewarded and who's getting punished. So if there was a doctor that spoke up, if there was a celebrity that spoke up, there's a psychological operation process called shooting a hostage. And you're not going to do it quietly. You're going to make sure it's public, messy, and you want it all over all the news stations all at once to signal the subconscious of everybody watching what's appropriate behavior and what's not appropriate. Now, if you're weak and your subconscious is taking in all the rewarded behavior that is getting the limelight on all the TV stations, your subconscious says, you're weak. That's the group that's going to protect you. So all these super aggressive masks, and everybody's trying to out Nazi each other in this regard, some of them. And they were doing, understand the mind control operation, that here's the mind control operation. The easiest way to kill anybody and the easiest way to steal their money is let their own government do it to their own people. Because if you had China walk in to the United States right now and said, you know what, we're going to lock you down and inject you with poison and steal half your income, what do you think's going to happen?
Well, they're going to fight back. It's war, obviously.
It's war, right? But if I can mind control you to the point where you believe in this paradigm, and there's nothing, these are huge mind control operations, to make someone believe that some other human has the right, not just the ability to steal your money and inject you with poison, but the right to do it, is a huge mind control operation. And so what's going on in the United States, that they re-rigged all the behavior modification. Everybody was sort of crawling away from the idea of government between 2020 and 2024. And have you noticed they managed to circle the wagons and get everybody back in voting again, saying, look, who's going to steal my money? Who's going to inject me with poison? I want this guy to do it. No, I want this guy. I want this girl to do it. No, I want this guy to do it. It's a huge operation to control the repetitive content of social media, newspapers, radios, movies, TV shows, to get people begging that someone has the right to do any of this to these people.
You talked, you know what? You said that you didn't want to get into the conversation about who's running the show here because it's a very long, convoluted explanation, and possibly that's another appearance on the show. But I mean, you did just mention, Jason, that there is a very old religion that they're trying to resurrect here. And that obviously caught my attention. Can you give us a little bit about that?
I'll give you a little bit about it. Here, I'll give you one example, and then I'll send you an article. Okay. So if you go to Philadelphia to the Jeffersonian Medical School, Jefferson Medical School, Jefferson University, they're sort of connected. You will find a bull, a very specific bull, on a pillar, on a raised pillar in the courtyard there. Now, this is called the winged ox of St. Luke. Okay. So this particular bull has wings on it. It's got the horns. Oddly enough, though, on the side of the bull is a square cut out. I don't know how many people, and they control your education, so I don't expect you to know what that is a symbol of. But this is a symbol of the ancient cult of Moloch, or Molesh, Molech. Now, this group was famous for its belief. Now, I'm not going to tell you I believe it, but what should concern you is that they believe it. So if you go back and if you want to read about this cult, you can go read the book. And I know it's an odd author's name. His name is Winky Pratney. And the book is The Devil Take the Youngest. So this group believed that there was energy entities outside the spectrum of visible light. And there could be favors and information passed between us and them, but sacrifices had to be made. So they would have their cults in all their areas, and they would always have a metal bull, an effigy of a bull. It means an artificial statue of a bull. And it would always have that metal door in the side. And there would always be a heated fire underneath the bull, the metal bull, to make it red or white hot, and they put a live baby inside and burn it alive. That's the cult of Molesh. Now, why would a death cult, child death cult effigy of a bull be at the Jefferson Medical Center and Jefferson University in Philadelphia? Why? And only, say, 6 blocks away is a hospital called CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Why would they call it CHOP? And they used to, in the ancient times, chop up what was remaining and eat it. And inside CHOP is a famous medical doctor named Dr. Paul Offit, who went on the record in a recorded meeting that children, infants, can take up to 10,000 vaccines at once and it wouldn't hurt their health. And on the pillar on which that metal death cult, child death cult, bull effigy rests is a list of 50 medical doctors that we're supposed to honor through repetitive content, just because they're wearing a white butcher coat, the high priests of the death cult. And they are doctors and scientists that have invented things to hurt children, absolutely. So
this predates Christianity, I'm sure. Like when you talk about old and ancient, this is thousands of years old.
Thousands of years old. So what do you think, where we get our phrases holy moly from? That's holy molish, the holy smoke, right? Holy smoke. Where do you think it comes from? The baby on the fire. And some people say it all the time, holy moly. I'm like, do you know where that comes from? You might want to reconsider saying that.
Are these people identifiable? The entire interview, all 100 minutes, is available in the exclusive interviews section at shadowdavis.com for all access members. I want to thank Jason Christoff for taking the time to appear on the show tonight. That's all I've got for you guys tonight. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you, as always, by CanadaNanoSilver.com. Tomorrow is the U.S. election. We'll be doing an election special. We'll have websites open. May even get Anita Krishna to come on and keep me company through that. I was talking to her briefly today, and I agreed to come on her show Wednesday, so maybe she can come on my show tomorrow night, and we can go over the stats and analysis of what the heck is going on with the U.S. election. It's going to be a fun night, if anything, and a nail biter. At least I hope it's not going to be a nail biter, but if it is, we can all bite our nails together tomorrow night. The U.S. presidential election, of course, Senate, House, governors all being elected tomorrow as well. It's a big day for the world tomorrow. Some people say, why do you spend so much time talking about the U.S. election? Because the United States affects us, first of all, a lot, but the entire world. More coming up in the extension on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will see you tomorrow night or in 2 minutes. Bye for now.